How to start seeds for your home backyard garden. My name's Lex and welcome back to the Home Garden Plan Along series. In this video, I'm going to show you how to start seeds for your backyard home garden veggie plants. So I have done a lot of the prep work already, which I've covered in previous videos about getting my grow station set up, cleaning my garden supplies, and so in this case it was my trays and the pots that I'm using for my seed starting, filling my pots up with soil, and now we're going to put seeds in the soil and watch them germinate and grow into the plants that we're going to put outside into our gardens. So I have a tray already set up here, soil and in my potting cups. Now this is a one-piece potting tray. And then I have a bottom tray here which collects water, so nothing is dripping out and making a mess all over my inside grow shelves. I've also labeled what I'm going to be growing in each of these rows here. So there's different ways that you can go about labeling your plants, but I personally like to use these plastic labels and then use a special pen for these labels so that the ink doesn't wear off with the water and the sunlight that's going to be touching them. Do that with each variety. I go ahead and make a label marker, and I'm going to plant seeds in each one of these rows, all the same variety. So I'm not going to make a label for each individual cell because that would take up a lot of my labels. But this way I know that all the plants in these rows here are going to be the same. This will help me with transplanting time, so I know where things are going to go in my garden because I made a garden plan and I want to be able to put the plants that I've designated in certain areas out into my garden. So back in the earlier videos of our Home Garden Plan Along series, the first thing we did was create a list of all the plants that we're going to grow throughout the gardening season. And I'm working on my spring garden planting today. Hopefully you've made some kind of garden sketch where you are basically plotting out where all of these plants are going to go into your home vegetable garden. All of that pre-work we did earlier in the series has helped us get to this point to actually starting seeds indoors. The first one I'm going to work on here is this lettuce variety called Bronze Mignonette. And this is a cold hardy variety, which means that it's going to do better in cooler temperatures. And since my plan is to put this out in the garden, either late March or early April, I want a variety that can handle frost because we will still have frosty nights during that time, probably until mid-May. So I'm just going to sprinkle a handful of seeds here onto my hand. And now lettuce seeds are very small. You can see there's not much to them, but there's probably 20 or 30 seeds in my hand. And with lettuce seeds, they don't need to be going deep into the soil. Really, I'm just going to take a pinch of these seeds and just sprinkle them right on top, maybe like 4 to 5 seeds for each of these cells. Maybe a little bit more. And that's okay. What will happen is that these will, when they grow out, the plants aren't going to be very big because it's going to be competing for space in these small cells. But by the time we come to transplanting, they'll be a good enough size where I can pull all of those little seedlings out of the cell, separate them, and plant them in the ground. And then I'll go through that process when we get to that point in the springtime. So I have a couple seeds left in my hand. I'm going to put those back in here. And I'm just going to lightly tap on top just to kind of dampen those seeds down. Now I did pre-wet my soil. So before I even started, I took my trays over to my sink and lightly sprayed over top. So it's lightly damp, not sopping wet, but just kind of like a damp sponge sort of consistency. Now the reason I wet my soil before I put the seeds in is because if I were to have dry soil, put the seeds in, and then put the water on top, what ends up happening is a lot of those tiny seeds get pushed down way too far into the soil because the water pressure has pushed them down deeper than they should go. And that little seed runs out of energy to make it up to the surface. And then you may wonder, why aren't my seeds germinating? Are my seeds bad? What did I do wrong? Well, if they are deep into the soil, then it's going to basically run out of life and not make it to the surface, which means it's not going to get sunlight and it's just going to die underground. So the next one I'm doing is called devil's ear lettuce. And this one grows in about 50 days, and it says it's also slow to bolt, which is good because if it starts to get really hot, it won't go to flower as early. So I put some seeds in my hand. You can just see how tiny those are. I'm just going to take a pinch between my fingers and then just start to sprinkle them right on top of the soil here. And I'm not trying to count these out or anything, just some in each cell, and that will be good. So now I'm just going to lightly tamp down on the top here. I'm not pushing those deep down because lettuce seeds don't need to be deep down into the soil. They should be right on top of the surface, but the surface does need to be kept moist so it doesn't dry out. So taking a squirt bottle to these every day until they germinate is a good way to keep the soil moist without adding too much water pressure where it pushes the seeds down too far deep and they can't germinate. And that's it. This is the same process that I'm going to keep doing for all of the different varieties of lettuce and salad greens that I am starting today, as well as kale, spinach, and onions. So make sure to follow along for future videos about seed starting. I think next up I'm going to be working on cabbages and broccoli, and shortly thereafter eggplants and peppers. I'll probably start some herbs soon as well, like basil, just because those can take a little bit longer to germinate. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Just let me know what you are most excited about planting this year.